Hey, it's Joyce Conroy, host of the Block Party. I am here on Ernie's Corner with Ernie Cefalu. And Ernie, you and Pacific Ioneer have had such a very diverse mix of clients. And when I told the Block Party family that we were going to talk about Anne Murray, they were just joyful about it.
Well, she was really a wonderful person, and her husband Bill was really nice. And we yes, you and I were talking. We attracted the weirdest people. I mean, Simon Stokes and the Black Whip Thrill Band, and then you got the Doors, and then you got Jefferson Airplane, and then you got Alice Cooper, and then you got Anne Murray, and you got Grace Slick, and Mary Travers. I mean, it was all over the place, and as I never really it's funny, Joyce, because at the time it was like a job, and it was an album cover, another album cover, and we were into music. And whether I was a huge Anne Murray fan or not, or a Black Sabbath fan or not, at that moment when we got that project, I was the biggest fan. I became the biggest fan. I absorbed everything that they had done, all the songs, all the music, all the album covers that they had done, and tried to do something that was unique, not only to the music that they were doing, but to them, because they evolved just like their music evolved. Musicians like Anne Murray, and Alice Cooper. Look at Alice. I mean, you talk about, there was a time when people swore that he couldn't sing. It's like Bob Dylan. And then he comes out with, the Lay Lady Lay album, and it was, everybody ate their words on that. Same with Alice. Alice is got a great voice. Anne Murray was, for me, a different kind of musician. She had such a long career already when she came to us. And it's really funny because Bill Lanstroff is her husband on, I guess, Shep Gordon's request, because she was now kind of mingling with the Hollywood rock stars. And it was like Harry Nilsson and Mickey Dolenz and Alice Cooper and Keith Moon and John Lennon and Jim Morrison to a degree, and Anne Murray. She was kind of like the weird one out on that group, but there was a lot of stuff going on with them, and I, she became very close with Shep, and Shep was always a huge advocate of Pacific Pioneer and would send us. Shep and Alice were the biggest salespeople we ever had, and they weren't even really on the payroll. They directed so much business to us, not only verbally, but also giving us the opportunity to do the albums that we did for them, so that the industry was out there, and every time we get a new client, they go, man, we love what you're doing with Alice, or we hate what you're doing with Alice, but we love your guys' design, and your concepts and stuff. So, or your lettering, the lettering became a big thing with the Bee Gees, like we had talked about. And, it just pretty amazing. And when she came to us, and they came to us in 1973, it was probably toward the end of 73, and all they gave us were two photographs. That's it. There were two prints. They weren't even negatives that we could make bigger or smaller prints. They gave us two prints, and they said, here's the front cover and here's the back cover. Can you put it together for us? And it's like, well, not really. It really needs to be more special than just two photographs. What you're seeing over here, which was the album cover, was one photograph. And the other one over here that was the back cover was the second one. And what we did was, the first one, I wanted to do something really elegant and high end, because she hadn't had a cover like that yet. So we took that photograph, and we had some guys that were silk screeners that were they screened the Coke mirrors for us for the DJ kit for Alice Cooper's Greatest Hits. One of the DJ, you were a DJ, you get the promotional kit from the record company on that release. So we did, because it was Greatest Hits and cocaine was really popular, we did a Coke kit, which was a mirror with that lettering and the Alice Cooper Greatest Hits screened on it, with the guys against the wall and the guys with the guns. And we had a little tutor, and we had a little vial. And I guess when it went out to the DJs, it actually had a full vial, wink, wink. But anyway, those guys who did that did a really great job. So I went to them and said, look, I'm going to be doing this Anne Murray album. I have this picture that's a pretty good picture, but I want to do something more than just show the picture. So I had them screen this logo. and I wish I could make it bigger, but that logo is really, really beautiful. It's a beautiful logo that I did the lettering on, the AM, a monogram, and then Drew Struzan did the women on both sides of it and the ribbon, and we put Love Song in there and the wreath above it. I mean, it's a very almost Victorian kind of elegant. It's like a monogram. You know, the rich people have monograms on everything, in their sheets, their clothes, their towels. And so it was kind of a subliminal lifting of her where she needed to be, in my opinion. And then so I took that mirror, and it took them 4 or 5 days because it's a half a dozen colors. And what you have to do if you're familiar with silk screening on mirrors, you start out with a blank mirror, a blank piece of glass. And on the first piece of glass, you screen a color, and then that dries, and then you screen another color. It's still a clear piece of glass. And we beveled the edges. That was like an old mirror. And so like 6 or 7 passes screening and the same exact registration of that logo. You know, and I'll send you a bigger version so we can let the people on the block see it, because it is really, really something. And it took them a few weeks to get one mirror. I still have the mirror. It's out with all the other artwork, but it's this mirror. It's got that logo screened on it. And then what I did was I got a bouquet of flowers, and I took the photograph of her and I put it close enough to the mirror where it reflected in it. So it looks like she's looking in the mirror, but it's actually a photograph that's reflecting it. Oh, and then once the colors are screened, they mirrorize the glass. So the mirror goes on last so that it doesn't interfere with what's screened. It's a weird process, and it's very, very tedious, and it had to be exact because the registration, you know, you'll see when I send you a bigger version of that, the registration is critical. So it was an interesting thing. And then the back cover, I had that second picture. It wasn't really a good picture. The first picture was first. I think that's why they picked it for the back. And by the way, there was no time to get anything more. There was no time to do a photo shoot. She was going back to Canada. They dropped by to drop these off. So I took that back shot and cropped into it, come down, and had a mirror on the base with a petal from the flowers. And it's really funny because people thought that petal on the mirror was cocaine. And so there was this big buzz about, wow, she put cocaine on the mirror. But if you look close, you can tell it's a petal from the flower. But people, it's on, you know, like on the Burton Cummings album for Dream of a Child, okay? The kid that we used was our secretary's son, and he played baseball, and he had a bruise on his leg, and you can see it if you look at the photograph closely. And they got all these letters about child abuse, and you know, oh man, there's a lot of crazies out there, man. A lot of crazies. Beside you and me, there's a whole bunch of us out there, you know. So, but it's anyway. That was a little bit of controversy about that particular album because that wasn't Anne Murray with the cocaine and stuff. Even though, who knows what she was doing. She was hanging with that crowd, and you know, it's pretty hard to say no when you're hanging with that crowd, which was so unusual for her because that wasn't the kind of people that she was really, you know, associated with and stuff. But that's what happens when you come to LA. You get to Hollywood, man, and it just, it's very strange, and it'll eat you up if you're not careful, you know, and it spits you out. Fame, I was talking with Bonnie the other day, and we were talking about, you know, your moment in the sun being, you know, we all look for that moment where we can leave a mark, you know, and sometimes, a lot of times with celebrities and musicians too, you know, and artists, you get swept up in it and you lose yourself in it. And then you realize that you're not that person anymore and you're trying to live up to that image. I went through that with Alice. Alice had a very major drug problem. As everybody knows, it's no secret. And you know, there's some horror stories that I experienced, but you know what? Through his faith in God and faith in himself and the talent that he had, he changed it all around. And, you know, I got a lot of respect for Alice Cooper. Vince is an amazing person. He's the nicest guy you ever want to meet. He'd give you the shirt off his back. I've known him since 1971. And he's like Burton. I've known Burton since '72. He's the same way. Burton's got a big heart, a big heart. You know, he gets a little crazy sometimes, but I think that's the Canadian in him. You know, those Canucks, man, they get crazy, you know, especially if there's a hockey game on. If there's a hockey game on, forget about it, man, you know. So, but anyway, it was a really great experience putting that all together, you know, and we did it pretty quickly because I think the album came out somewhere like February, you know, January, February, somewhere in there. So we didn't have very long to work on it, and we didn't have much to work with. So it's like making something out of nothing, which is, you know, it's not unusual for stuff that we did, but I look back at things like this album cover and dream of a child when that magic moment happened, when I opened that Venetian blind and it threw that pattern across it. And it was like, oh my God, that's it. That's it. That's the moment. And this album for Ann was that moment. It really was, front and back cover. She loved it. It was really great, you know, and it was a great experience working with her. And, you know, that album and her and the mirror will all be in the book at some point.
That is such a beautiful design. You know, when I first looked at the design, I kept thinking regal, queen.
Yes, that's what I wanted, because she really hadn't had an album cover like that. I did a lot of research on, and she's had a lot of, 35 or 40 albums she's had. She's, you know, and I think that the one we did, and I guess I'm a little bit biased, but, you know, I think the one we did really fit her like a comfortable pair of shoes. It really was that. That's what I wanted for her and what I wanted to achieve in that cover. And I take a lot of pride in that. I mean, most people go, Anne Murray, well, what about Black Sabbath, dude? Or, you know, Led Zeppelin, Alice Cooper, you know. I love them too. It's like having children. I love every one of them, but for different reasons, you know. And you know, she was, like I said, pretty amazing. And, you know, like I was telling you, I started to say, you know, Bonnie and I were talking the other day about having that moment in the sun. We all have that. The trick is to really perpetuate it, you know, to really keep it alive. Be there every morning when the sun comes up to get that moment where it shines on you, you know. And at some point, you know, we're going to talk in one of these cornered interviews and conversations. I want to talk about that, talk about following your dream and you know, and just never giving up. You know, if you never give up, you can't lose. Who wants to be a loser?
So very true, Ernie. Yeah, you know, we have a show called Fresh Tracks, and a lot of the local musicians, people, you know, who, you know, right, with their art, they share it locally, and they, you know, and they need inspiration. And I think just what we say here on the Block Party is just going to be another reminder, and you've lived it.
Yeah, I have. I've been, and I'm still living it. I'm there every morning to get my beam to keep me lit up for that day. As long as you show up, Woody Allen used to say, showing up is 80%.
Yes.
You know, and you got a great shot. You show up, look around, there's not very many people in line, and hey, you've got a great chance, you know? It's awesome.
Gosh.
You got to just show up every day and believe in yourself.
You do. Yeah. Now, I'm anxious to know what your song pick.
Well,
I was going to get to that. You know that.
Well, it's going to be one pick this time. I mean, there's a lot of them. They're hard to pick from, but for that album, Love Song was really the song. It got her a Grammy for the best country vocal, female vocal. She won a Grammy for that song. And it was a beautiful song. And that was the title song, obviously, from the album. And when they came to us, she gave us a cassette. Man, I wish I could find those. I have a Rolling Stone Sticky Finger cassette with rough tracks and them talking, and somewhere that Marshall Chess gave us. You know, so, but that song was an incredible song. That song, I position that song to the same place where when I was in the recording studio and Alice was putting the final touches on School's Out, and Shep was there, Bob Ezra was there, and we were in the control room there, and Shep said, this song is going to be iconic every year when School's Out. That song is going to be played. That was 50 years ago, you know, whatever the hell it was, 48 years, whatever, 50, I think. You know, and still to this day, they play School's Out. Now it's time to go back to school. They're still playing it. I heard it the other day on the radio. So Love Song would be my choice.
I love your choice. That's mine. And then I always loved Anne Murray. She was one lady who could sing a great cover. You Won't See Me is another.
Yes, yes. Oh yeah, she's done a few covers of Lennon and McCartney songs. You know, she's got that kind of voice. You're right. She's got that kind of voice that, you know, it's like Burton. He could sing the phone book. You know, I've told him that you could sing the phone book, and for me, it wasn't about Randy Bachman's guitar playing or this guy's drumming, or it was about the voice. It's always been about the voice for me in music, and the fact that there's great musicians that go along with it to enhance the voice. You know, so yeah, Anne Murray's one of those, and I'm glad we got a chance to get together on the corner. Everything looks pretty good. I'm, walking up and down the street saying hi to all the neighbors on Facebook. So I, again, appreciate it, Joyce, and your kindness to let me do this. And, I'm hoping I bring a lot of value to you and the people on the block.
Ernie, you certainly do. And you know what? We enjoyed the hamburgers that you cooked up last week on the block for our Iron Butterfly discussion.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Flipping burgers. There you go. Started out being a creative director, ended up flipping burgers on the corner.
Well, we said you were diverse.
That's true. That's absolutely true. Joyce, thank you. You have a great day, and thank you, everybody on the block, all my neighbors, and we'll see you next time.